As Joe mentioned, well, we've been in business for years. We've been in business for years working exclusively with veterinary practices. This is what we do. This is what we know.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining us at the Veterinary Insider Podcast, the podcast where we explore innovation, stories, and strategies to help with forward thinking in the veterinary industry, specifically focused on independent veterinarians and their challenges and struggles through business startup. And so today I have a special guest, I should say. Joe and William. They're both with IT Guru, and we are going to be speaking about the importance of having a strategy when it comes to your IT systems and how they should be working. How do you assess those strategies, and then finding the resources necessary to build exactly what you need as far as your clinic is concerned. So welcome, you guys. Thank you so much for being on.
Hey, thanks for having us. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you for having us. This is going to be a blast.
Yeah, I hope so. So, first of all, I would love to hear, our audience would love to hear how you guys met, how you guys, came up with the idea of IT Guru, kind of present state, and kind of what you guys are looking at for the future.
Sure, I can take that one, Will. So basically, this business started, it's coming up on 20 years. So 20 years this fall. I was working for American Medical Response prior to this. I ran all their ambulance dispatch systems across the United States. And it was a large corporate kind of setting, and decided, hey, if it doesn't work this hard, I'll go work for myself. And so started IT Guru and just focus on small biz to kind of start with out of Denver metro area. However, I remember this distinctly the day that we decided to go the vertical of veterinary clinics and hospitals. It was my daughter's 13th birthday. And I came home from a clinic in Parker, Colorado, pretty excited, all kinds of, technology being used. I was able to help them, really pull it all together. She knew I was kind of searching for a niche, and she just kind of looked at me and said, why don't you focus on that? And that's where the journey began, and that's where we're at today, almost 20 years later.
Awesome. So, how did you bring on William? Or how did that happen?
Sure. Yeah. So we are involved, obviously, with the veterinary industry, and William came on. We were introduced through an organization that we belong to. Got to know and understand William, and brought him into the fold. He was one of these. We have a hiring strategy at IT Guru. We go for I'll keep it nice. We go for a heck yes, but we call it a double hockey stick. But we go for that. But a yes is a maybe, and a no is actually a no. But Will was definitely a heck yeah, and brought him on to kind of run operations for us.
Yeah, I came in from the veterinary marketing side of things. So I've been in the space for, 15 years now, working operations and marketing before moving to IT Guru and doing operations here. It's great working with Joe. It's great working with this team. It's nice when you find like the right people that align with exactly who you want to be and what you want to do within this space.
Yeah, that's really great. A lot of us, founders, sometimes we struggle with, should we have a co-founder? How do we find the perfect, partner in our businesses? Can you give us a little bit of advice on how you did that?
Yeah, so I mean, obviously, when you're starting up a business like this, I started solo, right? So you can only take it so far, right? And so you have to, build a team and a cohesive team that believes in the same, vision and mission that you have in as an organization, right? So we're all on I guess, the same bus, right? Kind of marching forward here. So, when we're looking at this organization and it is a true, we have an ownership mentality throughout the business, right? So everybody is kind of has ownership in this business to, drive our mission forward.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, thank you so much. So why is it important we as veterinary practice owners have you guys?
I think that one of the things that people do very frequently in the IT space is underestimate the amount of technology that actually exists in veterinary hospitals. We think oh, well, it's just dogs and cats. But it's not just dogs and cats. It's workstations, it's workflow, it's network, it's laboratory equipment, it's the blood work, it's uploading images to DICOM. All of these different things are part of almost every single appointment that we see. And people don't always get that. And it's important to understand sort of the specialization of the type of people you're working with. I go to my veterinarian because I know that they know how to treat my type of pet. And when I bring my dogs in, I know that they're experienced with dog care, with cat care, with exotic care, with small pocket pet care. These veterinarians know how to treat my type of pet. Likewise, as a veterinary practice, you need an IT firm that knows how to treat the illnesses that are happening within your network and within your workstations. There's a lot of these things that happen. Um, Printer setups, every business has printers, but label printers are very important to the lifeblood of a veterinary practice. You're running prescriptions day in, day out. And when those things go down, it cripples your ability to do work. Lab equipment, drug control cabinets. We've seen that happen where someone gets a new device, a new box, new something that comes in. They go to a trade show, they're sold on something, they're excited about this new thing, but they don't know how it works with their IT infrastructure. And their IT team has never encountered a drug control device before. And now they have to spend a lot of additional time just figuring it out, just figuring out how does this thing work? How does this work? We know that already. When you call us up and say, hey, we've got a new Cubex machine, great. Give us the cut sheet. Let's get going. Um, we also understand the human animal bond side of things. So there's the technology side of things, which is important. But there's certain things that we know how to respond to quickly. If a client calls into me and says, hey, I've got a workstation down, I know what that means. When they call in and say, I've got a workstation down and I have a dog that is currently under anesthesia right now, I know that the criticality of that issue has just escalated. So I need to jump on that right away. And then I also know if I'm on site, if they have a room where they're currently having a grieving patient after euthanasia or something like that, I know not to barge into that room. I know how to work with the practice manager and say, hey, it looks like this room is sensitive right now. Please let us know when an appropriate time to come back in this. I can work on exam 4 instead while exam 1 is currently being used with this patient. It's all about understanding both the relationships that happen there, the technology, and being able to apply our expertise to each of those elements.
Yeah. It sounds like you highlighted the importance of having an IT system and people working with them that are also familiar with the veterinary industry. And can you talk a little bit about that and what sets you guys apart?
Absolutely. So, as Joe mentioned, while we've been in business for years, we've been in business for years working exclusively with veterinary practices. This is what we do. This is what we know. We go to the trade shows. We're part of the different veterinary organizations, including Vet Partners, is one that we are both members of, working with different consultants across the country. Of course, with IVPA, we're very excited to work with independent practices and the organizations that support them. We understand things that are happening and we understand the changes that are occurring. We're part of this. Whenever you're at a trade show, there's always the scuttlebutt that happens. Guess who just purchased who? Guess who just got acquired? Guess who just got sold? From a business perspective, from a corporate perspective, from a individual practice perspective, we all have those conversations. We're part of those as well. So we can start having those conversations up front. Well, what does this mean to the software providers we're working with the hardware providers that we're working with the practices that we work with? Do we need to change anything in our workflow now? Do we need to start making recommendations to some of our clients because we know X software is going to be obsolete? We saw that recently, and I won't name the name of it, but a recent software company did sort of do an announcement of, hey, we're going to be shuttering our doors, and hey, now we're not. Kind of those two announcements happened sort of back to back. And during that time, we were able to work with clients who were thinking like, well, should I switch? Should I not? What should I do? To help guide them the right direction. Someone that is not in tune with the veterinary industry would not know how to have that conversation. They would have to let the client do the driving. And in our case, while we want the client to be able to manage their business, to run their business, to make those sound business decisions, we also want to be side by side with them. If their hand is on the steering wheel, We want our hand on that steering wheel as well, at least helping to navigate and guide them towards the proper solutions.
Yeah, good point. Thank you for sharing that. From my standpoint and from a lot of our audience's standpoints as independent veterinarians who are owning and running our practices, how so we view these things as expenses for us, right? It costs us money to bring an IT team on and help us out. How do we shift our mindset of viewing that as an expense versus an actual asset?
Yeah, that's a good question, and one we struggle with. To be honest with you, quite a bit when we come across independent practices. It's transforming. IT's transforming more from a cost center to a profit center. I mean, it is what's driving the business, right? Just like you have an infrastructure, a physical building, right? There are physical infrastructure that has to be maintained and operational in order for that clinic to function. So it's become really the heartbeat of the clinic. Without the technology, things come to a screeching halt, and from a workflow and efficiency and effectiveness. So capital outlay is going to happen, right? So it's the right capital outlay, the right investments, right? The right investments, and that's the word we like to use into technology that will drive down the overall operational expenditures, right? So, um, with the proper technology, you're going to have more efficient and effective workflows and employees to really drive that efficiency. And that's where it is. So it's really about budget planning, right? It's about the IT strategic plan to ensure that you're not really having these roller coaster ride IT costs, right? You're not, firefighting, and so be more preventative, right? Just as a doctor wants to have preventative medicine, for a healthier, client and the client's pet. It's trying to take that preventative approach, and knowing that clinics and hospitals don't have an unlimited budget. We know that we're a small biz too as well, right? So we know that you don't have an unlimited budget, but the planning is important to plan and budget for that. And we know things come up, and if they do, like we have one that has a cracked foundation and they just can't afford to put that in right now on a few investments. There's a few key ones that we have to make sure we go forward with, but we understand that this other project's going to have to be tabled for a while. We're going to hold it together until we get through this little rough patch. But it is truly an investment that continually has to be looked at from a strategic point of view.
Can you go through some of the other benefits other than operational efficiency?
From other benefits from operational efficiency, it's just protection, right? So again, it's about assuring that clinic is going to stay up and functional, right? So um, it's like electricity. You come in and to the office and you turn on the lights and you expect the lights to work, right? You're not sitting there trying to turn the lights on, and all of a sudden the lights aren't working today. Now we're going to troubleshoot this, and we're trying to figure this out, and so we want it as that it's taking IT to that light switch mentality, of where we want to flip the switch. We want to assure that it's functional, and we're without it, they're just moving around in the dark at that point.
There's a few of these different benefits that are key too. Of course, you mentioned like the efficiency, that uptime, that ability to keep things running. Those things have a downstream effect on a few other benefits, right? Brand, the ability for the client to say, I'm having a successful visit with my veterinarian and I want to come back. Staff morale. It's really hard to acquire talent right now. And there are a lot of people that are unfortunately leaving the industry because of burnout, because of just a lot of the different things that are happening. And there's a lot of solutions that are on the horizon to fix these things. But right now, one of the things you can do is make that workplace fun, easy place to be. No one likes to go into work each day and the first thing they think is, oh my goodness, is this printer going to work today? They want to go in and say, oh my goodness, I can't wait to provide great healthcare to these dogs and cats. That's what they want to do. They don't want to fight everything else. So both of those things there also impact overall profitability because when you're working at your maximum efficiency, you're filling your appointment books, you're not having to spend a bunch of time training and acquiring new staff, and your clients are actually following through with compliance, showing up for those appointments that you want them to come to. That's what makes that downstream profitability important. All of these things are interwoven, and it all starts with that one small spark of technology and efficiency. It can create that huge fire of, well, how am I going to pay my staff, or how am I going to keep the doors open?
Yeah. That is a huge punch of value. And what I want our audience to know is, how do they, if they're listening to this podcast right now, how do they get in touch with you right now?
It's easy, just itguru.vet, itguru.vet. Take a look, and we've got a contact us page. Very simple. You have direct access to my calendar right from that schedule. There's a schedule button right there, or fill out the form, and I'll follow up with you and send you a simple meeting link, and let's just chat. We could chat for 15 minutes. Just let's learn more about what your struggles are, and see if we might be a fit.
One of the nice things is that when someone reaches out to us, Joe's the first person, our owner is the first person they talk to. So he can have that conversation with them, owner to owner. He understands what it means to run a business, to have that stake, that skin in the game. And he works with the owner and the practice manager to initially assess what they need and then get them the help they need.
Excellent. Great reminder. And I know there are people that will be logging on as we're talking here. And so we'll keep going. Tell me some common IT mistakes that a lot of veterinary practices, the owners, what do you run into?
Oh yeah. So we've seen, there's the, internet, right? So, um, right off the top of my head, it's just, it's kind of a misalignment to standards of care, right? We again, so what do we commonly see that are misaligned? It's the environment, like being set, like a set it forget it model, right? Just set it up and then just let it ride, right? And that's not how it works today. I often give the analogy, it's like walking down the beach, with footprints in the sand, that there's all these waves that come up, that will wash those footprints away. So whatever you've done is just kind of it's undone by some new security vulnerability, et cetera. So maintaining it, so it's really, it's about maintaining, and it's not about us trying to sell the maintaining of it. It's just the reality of what's happening, right? We have to, you know, there, Microsoft comes out with patches every second Tuesday of the month. Those have to be pushed. Hardware patches have to be made, on the actual workstations have to be pushed. Third party applications have to be maintained and updated. And, your security and antivirus. So we see a lot of legacy type of security and AV out there, and it's just not protecting the clinic to where it needs to from today's protections, right? So what you used to get, say your Trend Micro or your Norton and such, more consumer models, they're not protecting you as well as what we consider like next gen AV, but and it's just that layers of protection. You can't just, like I said, in the past it was, okay, put a firewall in from the raw internet. I got I've got my AVG. I'm good to go. That's a 15, 20-year mentality. That's old. So that's a kind of old school mentality. You have to have layers of security, web filtering, all these patching. So that's often what we see. And then, if you're a Cornerstone shop and still using IDEX 123, that's a very simple way for us to be able to get in and our way through that network. I'll just be honest there.
Yeah. So we touched a little bit on cybersecurity. How real is the threat of cybersecurity with veterinary practice?
Oh my goodness, it is very real. So ransomware is the big word that floats in the air. And I think a lot of business owners understand that ransomware is a thing they should be afraid of. I think one thing that people don't always understand is what ransomware actually is. So I usually like to start these conversations by just defining it. Ransomware is just malicious software on your computer that holds your data ransom. It either makes you pay a bunch of money to access the data, or if you don't pay a bunch of money, they'll sell the data or do something else with it. Either way, it's keeping you away from the stuff that you need. There's a lot of ways that ransomware hits practices right now. Phishing is one of the big ones. In fact, it's the major vector, but there's also software vulnerabilities and unmonitored remote access tools. These are a threat to all small businesses. A lot of people think, well, I'm too small to be touched. No one's going to come after my money. They think about cybersecurity as the hacker that's in the basement, dark room, hoodie up, green lights flashing across their face as they're tapping furiously, saying, okay, I'm in. Hacking is not a one to one relationship. It's much more of like casting a net and seeing what you get. They're putting out a bunch of these, unfortunately, sophisticated and AI generated phishing tools that look more and more sophisticated these days and look more and more. They trick people. They legitimately trick people. And they're able to clone your voice. They're able to clone your face. They're able to do all of these different things to get you to click that link and install that bad software. Why is this bad? So, cyber attacks can cripple your infrastructure. They can, of course, extort you out of money. And in some cases, while you're down and getting all of this, you're now having to lose reputation and appointments because you're having to turn clients away. This hurts those things we talked about earlier: profitability, morale, um, client satisfaction, pet wellness overall. So, what should you do? So, cybersecurity is like a large net. Each solution needs to be figured out to each veterinary practice. So what I'm about to say is not a one size fits all solution. Instead, it's just a few things that I think should be considered as part of that plan. Bare minimum, you need a cybersecurity framework, ideally one that has both pre and post incident coverage. In other words, how do I understand and protect up front? How do I detect, respond, and recover after something's happened? You need to utilize multiple layers of protections, which includes, but it's not limited to, robust firewall protections, next gen antivirus, anti phishing and spam filtering tools, DNS filtering, and manage, detect, and response tools, which can actually help protect you through what's called a 24/7 security operations center. The last thing is basically it uses behavioral AI and a team that manages that behavioral AI to understand if something has infiltrated your system and is making suspicious behaviors behind the scene to isolate and quarantine things before it goes too far. That is a couple of minute answer to what is usually a multi-hour slash, sometimes, several conversations worth of planning for clients. But this should go to show you just how important cybersecurity is and just how much thought needs to go into figuring out these solutions.
Yeah. Thank you so much for that great explanation. I'm sure it's very helpful for a lot of us listening right now. So I really appreciate that. Um, as far as what we might be looking at in the next 3 to 5 years, when it comes to things like artificial intelligence and the Internet of Things, can you kind of lay that out for us, veterinarians, so that we know what to kind of expect?
Oh, 3 to 5 years. That's a long way away from technology aspect. Look at what the curve is happening right now. So, I mean, this conversation could be another one of these 60 minutes of just diving in, right? Of really uncovering. But there is a whole group that focuses on that. That's in the veterinary community called Veterinary Innovation Council. That's something that we would advise that you stay in touch with and tune with. And they show some this a few years back. I attended an event of theirs, and they were showing some just amazing things, right? But AI, right? AI is going to that's going to be the game changer, right? So, um, just in the human medicine side, right? They were doing some tests with AI with doctors, and they were saying AI was predicting, diagnostic and treatment plans 90% of the time correctly, when a practicing physician not using AI was only doing about 72%. So when they were using AI, they only increased by 4% to 76% of proper. So that tells you that they weren't listening to AI and for the diagnostic treatment plans. That's just one thing right there that we could see just take over this space of, diagnostic and treatment of current situations going on, especially for an independent, that could really help them get to the bottom of a situation. But there's going to be things, Internet of Things. I mean, we have, look at all the wearables that are coming out that are going to be able to, allow the clinic and the doctors the ability for that to link back to patient files to really truly understand and really get. I mean, more. We're talking about preventative medicine here, right? To really prevent and understand, and try to prevent these illnesses from even occurring. But I mean, you have things next 3 to 5 years that you're going to see robotic surgery. I mean, sounds futuristic, but it's already happening, right? Um, just look at what's happening in the 3D printing world, right? So, they're, they're going to be able, you're going to be able to 3D print, things that you need for that particular patient, right in the practice, right? Special pieces that can only be used in that particular type of surgery. So we get really lost in the weeds in here on that, but if we instead of a 3 to 5 years, look at the next year, the AI and where that's going, I think is key. 3 to 5 years, it's hard to predict, but those are some of my predictions.
Yeah, very cool. Thank you so much. So, when it comes to veterinary practitioners and they finally realize that they really needed to get someone involved to help with their IT structure and the function and getting them kind of geared up for the future. When we look for partners to help us with those things, what kind of questions should we be asking those parties?
Yeah, good question. So, what kind of experience they have? So, I mean, we see a lot of veterinary clinics, hospitals. They're using, like a generic IT provider or something. Uh, what kind of experience they have with other practices, right? Be surprised. There are, there's a lot of choices out there today, right? And there are folks that are more and more IT folks that are focusing in on the veterinary space, but they should really have some underlying understanding of the workflow of the practice and the solutions that are really there. So really understanding that kind of takes me to the next one is just their specific needs, right? So the common issues that are addressing, like Wayne mentioned, the printing, um, lab integration, communication, X-ray. They should experience with DICOM sending. All these pieces and parts that kind of need to meld together for that proper workflow and queuing of labs and requests. So really understanding those specific solutions, those industry specific solutions, and this, network infrastructure improvements. What steps are, we can just simply ask what steps are you going to help, with improving our network stability. Um, and then what kind of follow up and support? What kind of support are you going to provide? Is it more of a proactive support or more of a reactive support model, et cetera? But anybody they choose, they really need to kind of lean towards a framework. Like, William was mentioning a framework. There's 50 different cybersecurity frameworks out there today, but they need to align to something and show you the proof that they're aligning to some type of framework. And most of them have so much similarities in and around, and they all kind of layer, and do basically the same type of structure of getting you safe, stable, and secure. But they need to kind of show you and prove you that they are following some type of framework.
Yeah. Thank you so much for those really helpful tips. Now, help us out, William and Joe. I need you to help out our independents by explaining what are the red flags that we should watch out for when it comes to choosing partners.
Oh boy, yeah. Well, first of all, the first thing I think you should be able to do with your IT provider is go through the gut check. You need to be able to feel like the person that you're working with is someone that you can continue to work with, trust, you build that relationship with. That's not always the best way of indicating a red flag, but it is important to understand, is this someone that I want to do business with? But the four things that I would really say to focus on: look for that lack of veterinary experience. You want to choose a provider who understands your business. Non-veterinary IT practices, uh, IT firms won't have this. Also, make sure that they're being truthful with their claims. And what I mean by that is, I've seen some people within this space who will come in and they'll say, "We've been doing IT for 30 years. And also, we're experts in the veterinary space." And you listen to that and you think, oh, they've been doing veterinary IT for 30 years. And what you come to find out when you do a little bit of digging is they've been doing generic IT for other types of firms, and they've come into the veterinary space within the last year and are hoping that sort of conflating those two sentences will trick doctors into thinking they have that relationship. So you need to understand not just their tenure as a firm, but their tenure within this vertical, within the veterinary space. Also, when an IT firm focuses on cost, not on value, that's a huge red flag for me. There are people that will come into the space and say, "We are the cheapest in town. We will protect you for less." The thing is, you get what you pay for. And we see that in the veterinary space too. I know a lot of independent practices will say, There's someone down the street who's trying to undercut me on cost, but they're not doing all of the things that I do. They're not providing the quality of care that I do. They're not treating the pets. They're not spending the extra time. They're not doing the due diligence. You want an IT firm that's going to do that due diligence, that's invested in providing real solutions and explaining the tangible benefits of any of those necessary investments, like Joe mentioned before. Plus, the thing with these low cost investments is that when you're doing a low cost solution, it means basic protections at best. They're going to put in the bare minimum in place. And then when you need something more important, like critical outage, something timely, protections beyond just the one or two things like the antivirus maybe they have in place, those are then going to get tacked on at a premium. Sometimes you'll end up paying more under this type of solution, and the worst part about it is it makes costs hard to predict because you don't know what you're spending necessarily month to month. Because if you have months where you have these large spikes because of additional investments, how do you budget that? How do you forecast that? As a business owner, you want predictable costs that you can forecast for. So you want someone that is going to give you real, accurate costs that you can pin your business on, because that's what you are. You are pinning your business on this relationship.
Yeah, thank you very much. That's some really good advice. How do we what advice would you give independent veterinarians who are searching for a technology solution and they want it to grow with their practice and not become a barrier in the future for them?
Yeah, that's good question. So it kind of follows, I think the first thing you need to do is the number one thing we use from our framework aspect is identify, right? Identify is identification of what you have. So it's really important to kind of understand that, right? Understand it um, from a 50 foot, from you looking down at the forest versus being in the forest, right? So looking down at it, saying, okay, here's what I have. Here's my fleet of computers, and ensure that you really are and ask yourself a question: are we going into what we consider technology debt? Meaning, you know. There are times we go into and see machines that are 10, 12 years old, right? 10, 12-year-old machines have gone past their life expectancy. So, those are kind of, items that we really need to continue to sustain so that the business can continue, to function, right? So, many times staff's phones and they're, we call it the computer in the pocket's more powerful than the computer that at the tech, the tech station or the pharmacy computer, right? So, just really making sure that you staying up on that technology so they can best run the payload or what you need from a practice. And then a roadmap, right? Continue looking at that roadmap. So again, you're not going to have an unlimited budget here, and we know that, we get that, but slowly kind of building out and prioritization around, ones that, are items that you're finding from the identification side. So, and then just, really having that more of a proactive, try to get more of a proactive. Again, looking at things, instead of being down in the trees, looking at from above the forest and looking down and understanding kind of what that map looks like and then building that roadmap of how do we change this, because this is a risk over in this area here with this particular, these front desk machines are 10 years old, and they're the highest most used machines, and in the clinic. Perhaps those are ones you make some investments on, because that's going to really ratchet up the customer success, if that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah, that's a really good, deep look at some of the advantages of some of these systems and having the right people in place. Um, and William, I'm going to direct this question to you since you are Mr. Marketer. Tell me how so besides internal operations, tell me how a really good IT strategy helps enhance client experiences for us as veterinarians.
Absolutely. So, as pet owners, we trust that our vets are going to be there when we need them. So, preventing downtime, that's one of the big elements of a proactive IT strategy, because downtime, like we said, it kills profitability, but it damages that reputation. When you have to call a client and say, I'm sorry, our network is down, we need to reschedule that appointment, that's hard. They've planned their workday around that. They've planned a lot of things around that appointment. And let's face it, it's hard to get people to come to the vet as often as we'd like. Every veterinarian I've talked to would say that the number one thing that they wish they could do if they had a magic wand was get their overall pet owner compliance rates up. We give all of this great advice, this ideas on how we should do care, and then that follow up afterwards is hard to make happen consistently. So when a person does schedule that appointment and we have to change it, we're really damaging our ability to provide care, not just now, but in the future. There's small things that happen even within the practice that can help damage this relationship, not just the scheduling the appointments. When your CSR at the front is struggling with the printer every single time it's time to check out, that damages the reputation, even if just a little bit. When your veterinary team member says, the computer's being slow again, it tarnishes that reputation. We need people to, we need the practices to properly invest in the right infrastructure so that they can maintain these things, but also so that they can provide additional tools to help with reputation. There's a lot of these cool tools that are happening out there, things that do like virtual reminders, virtual scribes, communication tech tools, all of these things. They don't work if your network doesn't work. So there's a lot of ways that you can also enhance your client reputation, but it all starts at building that foundation up. It all focuses on making sure your technology is helping you, not hurting you.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for that answer. That was so great, you guys. So, we talk about all this on paper. Talk to me about some case studies. Tell me about some before and afters. We want to know how these things work and what we get as a result in the real world.
Absolutely. I've got one that we worked with recently, and I'll keep it a little broad just to make sure that the client's specific information doesn't get out. But it was a practice out of Maryland that we worked with. They were experiencing massive network slowness and printer issue after printer issue. It was just hard for them to do the work that they wanted to do. So we worked with them. First thing we did during that onboarding was we spent time with them to understand their environment. We didn't go in and start throwing solutions at the wall. We wanted to say, what is the pain point and why is this pain point occurring? So we dug deep. We understood their environment. Then and only then did we make our proposed changes. Those proposed changes were pretty simple. There was some network gear that needed to be replaced and modernized. There were some printers that needed to be set up on print management system. A few other things as well, but those were the two biggies that really pop out in terms of those two big issues. So then what we did was we went in and we planfully deployed those solutions. We didn't do a rip and replace the next day. We scheduled an on-site where we were there for multiple days, working through their network, not only making sure that we were making those changes, but properly documenting those changes and making sure everything aligned to our standards before we were done. Then we did a checkup the first day after they went live with their new system. With any technology changes, change begets change. So sometimes there's like there might be a small issue or a small follow up. Wasn't the case here. They said the entire staff was incredibly happy. It was the best they had run their practice in years. They were more efficient. And most importantly, they were able to more confidently treat their patients. And they felt as though their staff was able to do the jobs that they were being hired for. Their CSRs were able to provide that frontline support. Their techs were able to do more elevated work in the back, including blood draws, temperature checks, and some of those things that sometimes techs don't get to do because we underutilize them and just throw them in other parts of the practice. Meaning the DVMs were able to spend more time running through soaps, running through analysis, and having those important conversations with practices. We're very proud that our partnership was part of what helped make this happen. And we're also proud that the client was able to come with us on this journey because it took strength on their part to understand that changes need to be made, investments need to be made, and their entire staff embraced it and benefited as a result of it.
Yeah, that's so wonderful. Thank you for sharing that story with us. And so, just to kind of wrap up everything, just some of the major things that we've covered are switching our mindset, looking at IT systems as an asset rather than a cost. We're looking at being able to choose the right partners for us at the right moment for the right reasons. Some of the cybersecurity basics, those were great too to review. It's very important for us to know kind of what we're getting into with that. And then, of course, the future readiness and how all of this kind of pulls together and how we kind of create these systems that we can then just do some incremental changes along the way as we kind of study what this looks like as we move forward. There's a lot of unknowns, as you guys touched on, but again, a lot of exciting things to look for in the future too as well. So it's all really exciting for us. And we're really, really fortunate to have people like you, an IT guru, to help guide us in our decisions and our practices and making them as efficient and as friendly as possible to work with. And so I want to make sure that our listeners can find you. And how do they start that conversation with you guys?
Sure. I mean, and as part of IVPA as well is that, we offer a free assessment. You just said it, a readiness, right? So if anybody's interested, take us up on that offer. There's no obligation to purchase or buy anything from us. Okay. Um, yeah, you'll learn a ton about your own practice. So we want to understand what you currently have so that we can assist you with what the next steps are, even if that's not using us. Okay. IT Guru is an educator. We want to educate on what you have and the potential roadmap for the future. And so it's simply just go to our website, itguru.vet. There's a contact us form. Just click the contact us. You can either schedule the consult right there using the schedule button, or you can fill out the form and I'll follow up with an email and you'll have direct access to my calendar for a 15-minute discovery call. I'll talk to you about it. Just mention this podcast as in the notes when you fill out that form, and take me up on that offer so that you can really gain the insight you need. And that's kind of we're helping you with that first step, that identification, right? Identification of what you have, and there's tons of reports I'll share with you. You'll have full insight and understanding, in most cases of the age of the equipment, depending on how old it is, but we have warranty reports, we have security reports, we can show all this to you and it's all yours. And that's information you can take and carry forward, or if you decide to use this, great. And we'll talk about that as a next step, but there's no obligation to do so.
Yeah. You guys heard it direct from the CEO. It's itguru.vet. Fill out the contact form, easy peasy. You get direct contact with these guys and really get the support that you need to make some good decisions moving forward. So again, thank you guys so much. I know you guys also sponsored the episode, so we appreciate that too as well. And don't forget, you guys can catch this podcast on YouTube and Spotify. And in addition, don't forget, we are at iveterinarians.org, and we are the Independent Veterinary Practitioner Association on the Veterinary Insider podcast. Thank you so much.
Thank you all. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much.